Russell Brand has been on his social media. He recently even prayed the Rosary.
Hello, for our meditation today, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to chant the Holy Rosary.
You know, I love the fact that he's willing to share his knowledge of Catholicism, and it is interesting to see that kind of influence that he's had. And I mean, he's generated a lot of support, but also a tremendous amount of hatred because they saw him as just as a popular influencer, and now he's getting all Catholic. What's going on here? Welcome to the Father Leo Show, where I'm dishing out faith, culture, and commentary. And in this episode, we're going to talk about the fact that Candace Owens became a Roman Catholic, as well as a few other people of notoriety coming to the faith. And we're going to talk about the fact that many people with great intelligence, in other words, smart people, become Catholics. And we're going to talk about why, delving more deeply into why Catholicism appeals to people who are actually thinking of the deeper things in life, as well as talk about what it really means to be a Catholic and how to be a practicing Catholic. And so before we jump into my commentary about faith, let's first thank all of those who are subscribers and Patreon supporters. If you haven't done so, please click subscribe, share, like, and comment. It truly does help us in the YouTube algorithm. And please consider supporting us on Patreon with our community. $5 a month gives you access to great content, helping you to be an informed Catholic, plus also gives you opportunities for some great perks. So let's just jump right into it right now with a little discussion about why smart people become faithful and Catholic. In an age when Catholicism is truly under suspect, there is a great anti-Catholic sentiment, and even more strange is a confusion of what it means to be Catholic. I mean, we have people in great prominent positions who seem to kind of hold on to their Catholic faith when it benefits them, especially in the voting cycles, and we all know who we're talking about. Like, for example, President Biden is supposedly a very devout practicing Catholic, but I really do doubt if he is truly practicing for a few reasons. One, because he supports abortion and immorality, including the pushing of a transgender ideology on young people. This is not what it means to be a good Catholic. So what I'd like to do is kind of give you the definition of Catholics, and I'm going to give you the quote-unquote Catholics for Dummies version. If you're not familiar with this book, I know the co-author. He's a great guy, smart man, and he there's a whole series called For Dummies. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but there's something called Catholicism for Dummies. And I'm just going to take a little piece out of this and tell you what this means. You can't get any more simpler for a definition of what it means to be a practicing Catholic. As a Catholic, basically, you're required to live a Christian life, pray daily, participate in the sacraments, which also obviously includes the sacrament of reconciliation, get to confession. If you're a Catholic who hasn't been to confession in a while, are you really a good Catholic? So get to confession. Obey the moral law. And that opens up a whole nother can of worms, including the morality of protecting the dignity of human life, opposing abortion, as well as opposing immorality that we see being foisted on our world and being hijacked. Really, our world is being hijacked, including the Catholic Church being hijacked with immorality. Also, and accepting the teachings of Jesus Christ and his church. The following are a minimum requirement for Catholics, and it's actually not that big of a deal. Attend Mass every Sunday and holy days of obligation. Go to confession annually, if not more often when needed. That's called the Easter duty. Receive communion during Easter. Receiving weekly or daily is encouraged, though. So regular frequenting of the sacrament of the Eucharist. By the way, I misspoke. The Easter duty is being able to go to confession so that you can receive communion just once a year, and that's during the season of Easter. observing the laws of fasting and abstinence, which is basically on Ash Wednesday and Good Friday, one full meal on Ash Wednesday and Good Friday, and not eating meat on Fridays during the Lenten season. And you can even go a little further and say, and making sure that there is some form of abstinence on Fridays outside of the Easter season. Another kind of regulation is obeying the marriage laws. If you're married outside of the Catholic Church, then have your marriage regulated, have it blessed, have it recognized. Validated is the technical term. Support the church financially and otherwise, making sure you're giving time, talent, and treasure. And so knowing the faith is the first step of being Catholic. Accepting the faith is the second step. And practicing the faith is the third step, and obviously always, as in everything, the most difficult. So obeying the rules knows and appreciates the wisdom and the values of the various rules and laws, and you're asked to put that belief into action. In other words, to practice what you preach, or to practice what is preached, that is. So being a Catholic, in a sense, is adhering yourself to the Holy Roman Catholic Church. Unfortunately, there's a lot of division as to what it means these days, simply because you have a lot of people of influence telling you that their version of Catholicism should be the Catholic Church's version of Catholicism. And that's why I want to jump into now the culture and my commentaries regarding what culture and influencers are telling you about your Catholic faith. We get a lot of our understanding of our Catholic faith from outside sources. Unless you're a saint that's got a mystical, divine connection, a revelation directly to God the Father, the way some saints had, we are going to be people easily influenced by our surroundings. And let's admit, our surroundings are more than just the people who live in close proximity. Our surroundings are the people that we actually follow on social media, that we listen to. In a sense, I'm hoping to be a positive influence for anyone who is watching, so that you can be a good Catholic who is truly orthodox in his or her practice of Roman Catholicism, which means not someone who's going to be polemical, taking a side. Now, I take a very strong position on things like morality, and the reason is because it's the truth. But I don't want to divide people the way some Catholic commentators, I see them all the time. They make interesting points, but they always seem to leave us divided. In fact, even angry. And I can tell you that there are some people who are on my DMs, my direct messaging, and they can't stand me simply because I don't agree with them. But that's not my job to make you angry. It's my job to make sure that you're at peace, that you're at peace. So what I'd like to do is just share with you some unique research that's come out from the Pew Research Group. This is actually originally published in 2018, in September of 2018, but it's been recently updated, and I just kind of want to do some very quick takeaways for you right now. They listed it as a novena of facts, so 9 facts. So the first is that 20% of U.S. adults describe themselves as Catholics. So if there's 262 million people in the United States, and this is in 2023, about 52 million people are Catholic. And this is actually slightly down 4% from 2007. So there is, in a sense, a decrease in the number of people who identify or call themselves Catholics. Another is that the majority of Catholics are Anglos, but a third are Hispanic. And of course, there are other minorities. The Filipinos make up a pretty significant group. I mean, you can't go to LA or to the West Coast and not see that some parishes look like Little Manila. And that's, in my opinion, a very, very good thing, because Catholics in the Philippines are very devout people. There is truly a need for more education, but they are very devout and they are dedicated to their faith. A third is that most Catholics tend to be older. And that's neither good nor bad. It's just the reality. But it says that, when as you get older, you become a little bit more fervent in your faith. And so that's just normal. They also say that as you get older, you tend to become more conservative, but that's neither here nor there. A fourth kind of cultural reality is that roughly 3 in 10 U.S. Catholics live in the South, 26% live in the Northeast, 24% live in the West, and 21% in the Midwest. And so we're, somewhat evenly divided, spread out. But because this is the reason why I'm even bringing this up is because it's a migration. Catholics are becoming kind of more dispersed everywhere. At one point, it was always limited to the Northeast. But then it's actually creeping into the South. That's interesting because in the South, they were usually Baptist, but there's a greater migration down there. And I think it has to do with the fact that culturally, the Protestant lifestyle values are more open to the Catholics' approach to living. While unfortunately in the Northeast, the big cities, so to speak, they have truly become bastions of crazy liberalism. Now, liberalism is one thing. Crazy liberalism is another. And so there's a hostility to practicing your Catholic faith in the Northeast part of the United States. Okay, here's another one. About a third of the U.S. Catholics, 32%, have a bachelor's degree. So that means that there's some education there, which we're going to talk about next. And, they talk about weekly attendance. Only 28%, which is normal, attend Mass weekly. So in the parish life, we've always said that a third of people come to Mass. A third of the people are actually going to daily Mass. A third of them actually get involved. And so if you think about the numbers of people who are really, really gusto in the faith, it's pretty small, and that's pretty sad. Here's another one. About 52% lean towards the Republican values and 44% lean towards the Democrats, which is, again, very interesting. And because that's a shift. At one point in the JFK era, the majority of Catholics were considered Democrats because they were like for the common people. Now, I have no idea what Democrats stand for. And I'm not telling you how to vote. I'm just saying if you actually read the Democrats' kind of platform, they truly sound like Marxists. And that's of great concern to me because it just shows that there is a great problem. It's the religionizing of politics. But in this case, this is just research. It's information. You can get mad at me all you want. I'm just telling you that this is what the Pew Research has kind of uncovered. Here's a unique one, too, that while the majority of Catholics oppose abortion, they want to protect its legality. And this is the part that kind of irks me and annoys me, because that means that you're not really a faithful practicing Catholic if you can't uphold the dignity of human life. What kind of Catholic are you? You are truly, as we've heard this phrase before, you're a cafeteria Catholic. There's nothing else I can say about it. You want to pick and choose what you want to believe. But the most important issue is the sanctity of life, because that's the great gift that God gives to us. So if you are supporting abortion rights, you've got to ask yourself, do I need more education? And am I really aligned with the Catholic values? Because it would be very hard for me to receive communion if I was for killing people. It's just especially the unborn. This is a hot button issue, but it's something that we've really got to pay attention to because, unfortunately, about 6 in 10 Catholics support the legalization of abortion. And then the final kind of analysis is the favorability of popes. In the past, in my lifetime, John Paul II had over 90% favorability, which is amazing. Pope Benedict, his wasn't as strong. His highest was at 84%. And then Pope Francis is at 90% at its highest and 75% as of just February 2024. His favorability went down quite a bit, perhaps because of very unpopular and confusing things like fiducia supplicans and just some confusion that's coming out of the Vatican. Not necessarily confusion, but the way things are phrased. It is very confusing for the general public, which leads me to this point. When we look at Catholicism now and who is becoming Catholic, we know that there are a lot of reasons why people become Catholic. The number one reason is because of marriages. You know, people are getting married to a Catholic and they want to support their spouse. And so they have to go through a rite of Christian initiation. And that's kind of like a process of becoming an actual Catholic convert. But there is a quality of people that I've noticed, and it's a trend that is worth talking about, how smart people are becoming Catholic. And it doesn't matter to me too much, but we have to admit that when you hear something like Candace Owens becoming a Catholic, that's pretty impressive. And so here's what she writes on X. Recently, I made the decision to go home. There is a lot, of course, so much more that went into this decision and that I plan to share in the future. But for now, praise be to God for his gentle but relentless guiding of my heart toward capital T, truth. So do not fear, I am with you. And, she just kind of quotes the scriptures. And she converted to Catholicism at the Brompton Oratory in the Knightsbridge neighborhood in London, where she and her husband live, as well as her children. She's married to George Farmer, who was a former CEO of some social media group called Parler, definitely favored by conservatives. And he himself is a convert to Catholicism as well, which just makes me ask, why do people become Catholic? Especially knowing that there are a lot of smart people who've become Catholic, including Tammy Peterson, Jordan Peterson's wife, and, people who are thoughtful. And and I will just say that smart people who have become Catholic kind of intrigue me. Russel Brand has been on his social media. He recently even prayed the Rosary. I'm going to just play this clip with you of him praying.
Hello, for our meditation today, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to chant the Holy Rosary. Now, I don't know all of the prayers, like it begins and ends with certain prayers, but today we'll be looking at the chant itself. As you can see, you use the Rosary. This one was given to me by my mate Joe, who said that even though the crucifix is broken, Christ remains intact. You'll note that there are 5 sets of 10 beads with little interruptions. Now, I know that you chant Hail Mary on each of these, and you chant Lord's Prayer and Glory Be on the interstitial pieces. You can join in with me if you choose to, or you can just listen. Plus, you can add the additional beginning and closing prayers, which I don't know so well.
I love the fact that he's willing to share his knowledge of Catholicism. And it is interesting to see that kind of influence that he's had. And he's generated a lot of support, but also a tremendous amount of hatred because they saw him just as a popular influencer. And now he's getting all Catholic. What's going on here? But then Rob Schneider actually became a Catholic as well. And I like Rob Schneider because he's just hysterical, number one. But also people say that he and I look alike. Not quite sure why, but it might be the fact that he's got a Filipina mother and his father is Jewish. And he writes here, and this is from the National Catholic Register, on October 31st, social media was abuzz with the news that the American actor and comedian Rob Schneider had embraced the Catholic faith. He quotes, "I am now a new convert to Catholicism." And he writes that he offers his apology for my lack of Christ's forgiveness to my fellow man. It's just, for me, when you read about these things, about people becoming Catholic, you can't take your own faith for granted. Because when you do, you become, I hate to say it, you just become very arrogant in Catholicism. You know, I just did a quick little search on who are some Catholic celebrities, and we all know the kind of the popular ones. You've got Mel Gibson, you've got Jonathan Rumi, who, interestingly enough, was kind of like a low-rated celebrity. He hadn't worked in a while. He was on The View recently, and it's only because of his role of Jesus in the Chosen series that he has grown to great popularity, and good for him. He's a talented actor, and he's embraced his faith, and he's gone just super public and viral about it. And that's a good thing. But Mark Wahlberg, he's always been kind of famous, you know, as a rapper and as an actor and just as an influencer, but he's pretty outspoken with it as well. And then you have people like David Henry, who was a former Disney Channel celebrity, and he's gone gung-ho in practicing his faith as well. But then you have people who have grown up in their faith, and you just gotta kind of wonder where they are. You know, we've got Colbert, for example. He's Catholic. He talks about it all the time, but he's probably in that 44% of Democrats. You have Madonna, the singer Madonna, that is. Lady Gaga was raised Catholic. Leonardo DiCaprio, Martin Scorsese, George Clooney, Anna Hathaway, Jimmy Kimmel, and guess what? Even Iron Chef Bobby Flay, who I beat in the Food Network's Throwdown, Season 7, Episode 1. You just got to realize that all these people are Catholic, but they were raised Catholic. My encouragement is, how do we support people who are cradle Catholics to become practicing Catholics? And that's where I'm going to jump now into my commentary. We all want to be part of a group that is cool, that is smart, that is beautiful, that is influential. And that's why we pay attention to when smart people and beautiful people like Candace Owens, Jonathan Rumi, Mark Wahlberg, when we see them public with their Catholic faith, we feel good about ourselves as Catholics. But I don't feel that way when it comes to like AOC. She's apparently Catholic. You know, whenever I hear people who are opposed to the pro-life message or promoting immorality, yet they claim their Catholicism, I'm not proud of that. Not at all. In fact, I have to start making my distinctions. And so here's my commentary. Please don't let influencers influence your faith. Please, I'm going to say it again. Do not let influencers influence your faith. The only influence that should have any influence on you is truly the Holy Spirit, is truly God the Father, is truly the Lord Jesus Christ. The influencers in your life should be the sacraments, especially the sacrament of reconciliation. The influencers in your life should be the virtues and the recognition of our vices and how we need to strengthen our own resolve. The influences of our faith should be truly authentic divine revelation, which are the scriptures and the teachings and the traditions of the church. As much as I love when celebrities, especially the ones that I like, kind of talk about their Catholic faith, I'm happy for them, but we should pray for them that they stay practicing in their Catholic faith. This reminds me of the Feast of Christ the King, because in my homilies, I always try to kind of talk about what does it mean to accept Jesus Christ as your King? Well, there are three ways that can happen. One, you can be born into his kingdom. You know, we call them cradle Catholics. And that's the problem, because then you start to think that, you know, you're part of this and you can take it for granted. So I always warn cradle Catholics, you got to be a practicing cradle Catholic. If not, you're going to be a spoiled Catholic. Second, you can either be born into the kingdom or you can surrender. You can literally say, you know what? I want what they're having. That's basically what Candace Owens did. She looked at her husband and said, I want what he's having. I want the Eucharist. I want to be able to receive the sacraments. I want the treasures of the Catholic Church. And let me tell you, the Catholic Church has a ton of treasures. And I'm not talking about the physical, because they belong to everyone. We're talking about the spiritual treasures of the church. Candace Owens basically surrendered herself to the Holy Roman Catholic Church. Or the third way that Christ will become your king is that if he conquers you. And that's a very humbling form of submission. It's what St. Paul went through when he was knocked off his proverbial high Roman horse. He thought he was right until he realized he was wrong. And it's a very humbling thing. I talk about this quite a bit, that before you recognize that you were wrong about something, you felt awesome because you thought you knew everything. And then someone told you otherwise, and then you realized, I got a lot to learn. And that's where those who are subject to the awesome power of God that will knock you off your high Roman horse, they become actually truly great saints if they're willing to kind of tap out, like, in MMA, for example, or in kind of wrestling. If you're put in a hold and you know that you've lost, or, they could break your bone with just a little bit more pressure, or you're going to go to sleep soon because they got you in a sleeper hold, you kind of tap out. That's the third way. That's submission. It's not pretty. It's what von Balthasar says. God will drag you and help you find the truth, even if he has to drag you kicking and screaming. And that's kind of the three ways. You can be born into it and be a cradle Catholic, which is what I warn people about the most. Or two, you could actually surrender, and that's converts. Or three, you could be stubborn, and God will conquer. And it's going to require us to eventually submit. This is why I love being Catholic, because in our Catholic faith, we get all types of people. We really do. But I can tell you that the people who leave the Catholic Church, they don't leave for any really good reason. It's generally pretty pithy. It's generally pretty silly, to be honest with you. But the people who do come into the Catholic Church, they are true influencers. There's no doubt that Candace Owens' husband had an influence on her. But I also think the people she used to work with in Daily Wire, whether it be Matt Walsh or Michael Knowles, these are good, outstanding Catholic people. Just a side note, I knew Matt Walsh when he was a much younger kid. I was the associate pastor of a church near his home, and on occasion, his family would come to the church where, I served for a while. And I just knew him as a smart kid. He was always very pensive, very thoughtful, and he kind of looks the same. He just now has a beard. But anyway, it's not like he's going to know who I am, but it's pretty cool to say that I knew him when. And I'm grateful that he does have an influence on the world. And so we just have to ask ourselves, who are your influencers when it comes to Catholicism? Hopefully it's the triune God. Hopefully it's the Holy Roman Catholic Church and her teachings, the sacraments, the virtues, and the treasure troves that come from the company of saints. So congratulations to all of those who became Catholic. I know that there are many reasons why people become Catholic. We're just glad that you also found your way home. And just like every sinner who has been called to become a saint, just like the prodigal son who now feasts on the fatted calf, I welcome you to the banquet where you can receive something greater than the fatted calf, the Lamb of God who takes away the sins of the world. I am so, so grateful that people continue to become Catholic and make a choice to live the truth of the one true, holy, Catholic, and Apostolic Church. God bless you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope that this was encouraging to you. Please make sure you like, subscribe, share, and comment. What do you love about being Catholic? Let us know in the comments, and also make sure that you support us on our Patreon community so that we can continue to dish out faith, culture, and commentary. God bless, and stay hungry for God.